Okay.
Okay. I'm Michelle Baker, and I'm here presenting with Adam Patrick. We're from the traditional territory of Stellat'en. We'll be speaking on engaging families successfully in CCP. And we'll be talking about our partnership with UBC. Adam's gonna talk about year one, and I'll do year two, and Adam will close off with year three. So the 6 UBC students Stellat'en worked was Cody and Michelle in the first year, and I came on board as coordinator later in year 2 with Ren and Chris. And I worked the final year with Pablo and Cleo. Shauna was their mentor. It proved to be a great success working with these amazing students. And alongside with Shauna, we got to form wonderful relationships with them all.
So it was, as Michelle was saying, a 3-year process. And I think, you know, a big focus of some successes we had was engagement with elders in the first year. But the first thing that we had to do was to engage the community where everybody is. So that meant at that time doing some community dinners here in Stellat'en and also in Prince George and in Vancouver. And ultimately we reached 84 people, community members from all 3 of those locations, which is, we thought that was a pretty good success. Engaging specifically with elders, because when we're talking about engaging with families, Michelle and I talked about it, and we kind of thought about different age groups, or maybe age groups that sometimes might get forgotten about, or, you know, so we did try to focus on elders and youth. And starting in year 1 in 2018, you know, we went to somewhere where the elders are comfortable with being, which was our language center, where they do a lot of translation work, and started just to introduce the CCP process there. Later in the year, we met at another locale where there's normally an elders tea at our health center, and did some engagement on community history and values there. And then toward the end of the first year, which would have been April 2019, the students wanted to give a final update. They only managed to get 2 elders in attendance, and you know, they really wanted to focus on how can we really engage elders and get them interested. And they had a quote from one that went into their the students' report, which we thought was pretty important. You know, you have to make time to visit people and check up on them and see how they're doing, which we took. You know, like there are a lot of elders who are very engaged on Facebook or different ways. But there's nothing that really can beat a face-to-face visit and a door-to-door visit. And we were told that that's something that's really valuable. So it's something we tried to incorporate into our engagement process going forward, was to take the time to meet with elders on their doorstep, one-on-one, and just have a conversation with them.
So the first youth engagement was held in December 2019, and activities, snacks, and beverages was organized. Hoping for youth input, Dotmocracy was also organized. Dotmocracy is a facilitation method for voting on options written down, and they use their dot stickers to vote. But guess what? No one showed up. Actually, one youth eventually showed up, and the UBC students formed ideas and action items to better engage with the youth. The following month in January, another youth engagement was held. Amazon cards were highlighted to gain youth attendance. 10 youth showed up this time. Floor hockey, an art table, and Dotmocracy was organized at this one also. Along with the games and activities, the youth were asked questions like, where are we now and where are we going? The youth expressed they wanted more games night and enjoyed getting together. The following day, Ren and Chris met with the younger youth. They used a huge poster and asked the kids to draw what they wanted to see in their community. They certainly used their imagination. They drew hotels, amusement parks, and of course, animals. Their work and energy showed themes of hospitality, happiness, and care. The rest of the evening, they continued with games and running around the hall. Here's a close-up of the poster. You can see buildings, a mouse, a turtle, other animals, and well, some unidentified drawings also. Year 2 was a better for youth engagement. Unfortunately, we were unable to find a youth representative as planned. At the end of year 2, the pandemic started and all final visits from the students were canceled.
So the third year, and the theme that we kind of had was adapting to carry the process forward, given the new realities, obviously. The end of the second year, Chris and Ren, our two students that we were working with that year, were able to do a final presentation on Zoom. This would have been in May of 2020, and it was kind of new at that time, but it ended up being a really successful engagement. But that was a theme for the year, and for Pablo and Cleo, who came in the third year, is finding different ways to reach out to people. So a newsletter was a really key piece in the third year. And drawing on some of our lessons of engaging with elders, this is something that Michelle, as the coordinator, was delivering door to door and able to have a conversation with folks at their door about what's been done in the process and what's coming up. The students met with our advisory committee here in community, and they had noted to us that it was kind of difficult because we were all in our boardroom on a video screen to them, and they were in their apartments. They felt really disconnected and kind of missed that one-on-one, or just being in the same room with somebody. There's a lot of stuff that you pick up. It was really important, they thought, to introduce themselves on Facebook. I think we had an email listserv that had been developed over a couple of years. There's probably about 30 people as contacts on that, and we're always trying to figure out ways to contact people and which ways they prefer. And it ended up, Facebook has a really big 550 members in our Facebook group, so it really captures a lot of people. Not everybody, because you have to have a lot of different strategies. But the Facebook introduction was pretty important because they weren't going to have the opportunity to meet people face to face. So they really wanted to link it into some people that they had gotten to know face to face, Michelle and myself in the community, as well as the students who had worked on the project in years past. One of the focuses for year 3 was to prioritize actions that had been identified in the first 2 years. And to accomplish this, there was a series of surveys developed under each area, and it was available online. And Michelle, again, went door to door with elders and just spoke to them and filled it out for them so that we could take it and enter that data later on. And probably the highlight of that third year was a series of Zoom meetings that we ended up having in May over 3 nights. And each meeting had more than 40 community members, which is a pretty good turnout. And so there were elders invited to share knowledge. There was an elder doing language lessons, and everybody could hear practicing their pronunciation on Zoom, taking turns going through. And then we had another elder close out the meetings with traditional stories and legends that were a huge, huge hit with everybody. And one of the most valuable things was that at that time, there probably hadn't been an in-person community meeting in over a year. So there were a lot of people that were seeing each other face to face that hadn't seen each other in a really long time. And just to be able to hear from elders there too was really important for everybody. And I hope the elders got something out of it. I know everybody else did. And finally, at our AGA this summer, Pablo and Cleo were able to come up and meet everybody in person. And I think it says something about how well they did at engaging with folks, because it was like we'd known them for a long time. Like we almost didn't need an introduction when they came up, and they had a table, like a little booth set up at our AGA. And it was really wonderful to see it, like the number of people just greet them by their name and just watch them settle in community like they've been here all along.
So our lessons learned is if you have a partner as good as GBC, consider that it would be a great success. Our community is spread out, so we had to meet people where they were at, Stellat'en, Prince George, Vancouver. And there's no substitute for meeting our elders face to face. It's so important to make this happen. And kids like two things, fun activities and Amazon cards. And finally, it is possible to engage with elders online, and it's extremely positive, although face-to-face is, our elders are so precious. So, but we really want to reach out to them any which way we can.
So thanks, everybody, and we have a few minutes to take questions, right, Michelle?
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Michelle and Adam. Really appreciate you focusing on youth and elder engagement, because I think for so many communities, when they have questions about engagement, it's like, how do we get youth involved? How do we get elders involved? So really appreciate those reflections, and also just your story about adapting to COVID and doing good partnerships. So yes, we do have some questions, and I also just want to note that captions aren't showing up right now, and we're trying to figure out the tech side of it. So just apologies that captions aren't working perfectly right now, but we're trying to sort it out as soon as possible. So we've got a couple moments. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Michelle or Adam about the Stellat'en CCP?
This is Elsie, Elder Elsie. Yeah, I've been listening to that presentation, and I think it's really worthwhile. I know in our community, we really try to reach out to the youth, and it's really difficult to connect sometimes. I can reach out to the youth in my family and that, but sometimes the rest of the youth in the community, it's really important to try to find a way to reach out to them, to interest them. Although individually they'd say, they respect the teachings of the elders and old stories and things like that. But how do you go about getting a group in like that? So I really admire the work that's going on with these two people, that they are trying everything they can. And I know everything starts small and it grows, like the pebble in the water, I always say. We just have to keep on it. And for myself with Zoom, I never knew anything about Zoom or how. I'm not a techie person at my age. I know nothing about technology. So with the help of my family, they helped me log on, and it's really nice. I think I can speak for some other elders that once they get into it, they're good, but some of them are really afraid of it, which I was. I would never do that. I was so afraid to. I didn't know what buttons to press and how to access Zoom. But I think as long as we keep trying, find ways to reach out to the elders, because we've been so restricted because of COVID. But thank goodness for Zoom. I've come to really appreciate Zoom, and that I've been able to connect with people. I'm really busy with language. I'm pretty much the last fluent speaker in our community. And so I've been really busy with that. People phone all the time. How do you say this? How do you say this? And so on and so forth. So people want to learn the language, but it's really hard too to write our language, and it has to be written in a not orthography, right? So there's so many things that we can try to connect with one another, different ways and means. And I really applaud and raise my hands to the work that's ongoing in acknowledging elders and trying really hard to bring youth and elders together, because we know there's so much teachings and things that the youth can learn from the elders. We just have to keep putting it out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Elsie, for sharing your voice this afternoon and uplifting our speakers like that. Thank you. And I'm so glad that you managed to get on Zoom to be able to be here with us today. And I'm sure your community members are as well.
Yeah, imagine that. I'm all by myself today and I was able to stay connected.
Amazing.
I was like phoning, come and help me. I've been disconnected. Anyway.
I've got 4 other comments for Michelle and Adam to read from Zoom chat before we wrap up the storytelling and move into the other parts of closing plenary. So Raska just shares, nice capture of lessons learned. Thank you so much, Michelle and Adam. At Stellat'en First Nation, we're doing a lot of elder, I think it's Stellat'en, Raska, correct me. Oh yeah, Stellat'en First Nation. We're doing a lot of elder and youth engagement sessions for various initiatives. We always need to be creative. Chris Cardinal says, hi for sharing. Michelle and Adam, loved the presentation. It really brought me back. Thanks again. Of course, Chris being one of the students that worked with Stellat'en. Shirley Pat says, beautiful sharing. Thank you. Joyce Cooper says, we utilized other programs within the community to reach youth. That's great, making those connections. And then Andrea is just reminding us that captions are working now. So thanks for your patience there. So please join me in putting our hands together for Michelle and Adam for coming to share some highlights from the Stellat'en CCP example. And Michelle and Adam, grateful to have you here. I'm going to do a couple quick prize draws and housekeeping comments before I hand the floor over to Jay Simpson.